John, I think we're at episode 76 now.
I lost count. So
all right. Well, Spirit of 76, whatever, man. We're,
wasn't that a hockey team or something?
It was also like the big 1976, America's bicentennial, whatever. It has nothing to do with anything here. We have been talking to UA participants. We have been talking to various suppliers and things like that were sponsors of UA. And strangely enough, we haven't had a chance yet to talk to my driver. I was co-driver for on UA, Chad McKinney, who we've talked to before on the show. What do you think about getting a hold of him one more time and kind of talking some UA stuff and seeing what he's up to today?
We haven't talked to him in a while, so let's do it up. Let's make it happen.
All right, sounds good.
It's time to hit the trail, lock in those hubs, and throw it into low range. Because you are listening to Wheelin' with Keith and Johnny Orange. They're here to talk about 4x4s, trucks, and everything to do with enjoying the great outdoors. Buckle up. Here's your hosts, Keith and Johnny Orange.
All right, Chad, we got you on the line, buddy?
Chad's here.
Hey, Chad, man.
What's going on, man?
So, hey.
Just enjoying a high life.
Just doing what?
Just enjoying a high life.
A high life. Well, that's perfect.
I drank my last one 2 nights ago. I'm disappointed.
Hey, you and I haven't talked much, buddy, since we did UA together. I know we've chatted for maybe 10, 15 minutes here and there. You've been super busy with work, so have I. First of all, how you been since UA? What's going on?
We have just been buried with orders coming in the door. It's been a really good time. No complaints whatsoever. Kind of missing the off-road experience, so that was probably a life changer, I guess is the word to use.
That was your first real, crazy multi-day off-road trip. I know you've done other off-roading in the past, but this was your first, straight up, kind of overlanding type of trip. Did you enjoy it? Did you not? What was, was it did you get the bug, or is it not for you? You want to go buy a Prius now and put some 22-inch rims on it, or what?
Insult
the man?
What do you want to do? I've already got the Prius in the driveway, so we don't need to do another one. But it was the first off-road experience of any caliber. You guys live up there in Michigan. We've been up to the Silver Lake Sand Dunes, which is basically just a fun event for the day, but not really off-roading. So to go and do this, it was just, heck, my wife, Carrie, and I were just talking last night. She couldn't understand when I said, Sam in that green Jeep said, go that route. And I said, there's no way we went that route. And if they hadn't all gone in front of you, there'd be no way you'd go down the same hill. So it's just a heck of a time.
So, on UA, what was, jumping right into it, what was your favorite part of that entire trip? What really got you? What did you enjoy the most?
Truly, I liked the more tame part of it. I've always had a weird fascination with that movie Twister, and I like how they're just out cruising the back roads for just mindless miles. And just seeing the scenery and just kind of getting lost. So for me, actually, we were cruising that one day through, I guess it was Wyoming, where it was, the desert, where we went and checked out all the fossils and whatnot. That to me was just spectacular because it was just, you're able to just get lost and not have to think about things. So that was really cool. Yeah, that was awesome.
That was the day that Vern Simons went on, and he was on the radio there and told us for about 15 or 20 minutes about his dad taking him back when he was a kid all over that area in the Badlands and whatnot. You remember that?
That's right. And it's funny to think that that's a cool part, because if you remember the one night when we met up, or I guess we didn't meet up, but we ran into the fire jumpers, the guys that were trying to do a pre-burn to get ahead of the fires out there. And for them, what we're trying to do for fun, that's their job. So you have to think, what do they do for fun? Do they come to Ohio and, sit around a campfire?
I don't know, man.
What's their joy in life?
Well, I thought they came to Ohio and they ate Skyline chili or something. I don't,
Yeah. I don't know.
But, yeah, that was, it's funny you mentioned that because that was really one of my highlights of the trip too, was when Vern was telling us those personal stories. And like you said, we were out in just absolutely nowhere. And it just, and like you said with the Twister thing, and you remember you and I were playing the soundtrack on the phone and stuff and through the Bluetooth radio, but it was...
Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that, but that is true. We were playing that damn song over and over.
Yeah, just, The Humans Being by, I think it's Van Halen, if I remember right. Yeah.
Nice.
I don't know, but I could listen to it right now.
Oh, that's funny. It was, though. That was just... It was such a different landscape. It was like wheeling on Mars almost at times. It was just... It didn't even look earthly where we were at.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's so. I mean, that was definitely probably one of my highlights of the trip. Of course, meeting everybody, and people have been reading about for 20 years. I've been in this world and doing all that, and just the whole thing was just completely overwhelming. I gotta say too, though, that your rig. I had my doubts in the beginning, being on Dana 44s and not 1-tons and being a quote-unquote stockish JK, even though you had trussed the axles and put 38s on it. I was very, very
impressed. The fact that every day something else was loose or had been missing through the course of the day didn't concern you?
It didn't, but you know what? I tell you what, you didn't break anything major. And, being a former JK owner myself with that 09 that I had, that was, I had that NSG 370 or whatever they call it, that 6-speed that literally shifted like an old hard body Nissan that was sloppy as hell. The difference between that and shifting that Tremec that you had in your JK, I mean, it was two different Jeeps altogether. I mean, I would have been absolutely miserable off-road with my 09 JK that I used to have, but with yours, with that Tremec in it, with the quick draw bell in it, and I mean, I'm not sitting here just trying to blow smoke up your butt and promote the quick draw bell. I mean, obviously, it's obviously it's an awesome product, but I mean, you've obviously shifted stock JKs before, but mine, I mean, and even my cousin had one as well. You had 4 or 5 inches of slop in each gear in the shifter on the 6-speed JKs, and first gear was lame. It was only like 3.7 to 1. So even like when I did some Michigan fire trails up north of my old JK that I had, my JKU, first gear low, if you were doing a pretty serious hill climb, you felt like you just had no gearing. I mean, it was, you needed it to be a little bit deeper yet. And, so I really hadn't thought about the fact until I got behind the wheel of your JKU with the Tremec in it. I hadn't thought about the fact that a creeper gear in one of those Jeeps would make such a day and night difference, complete day and night difference. And the fact that when I operated the shifter, I could pick a gear and know what gear I'm in, not like go, oh, is this third or is this sixth or is this maybe reverse?
But if you remember the actual, I don't want to use the word downfall, but the kind of amazement part, since we were one of the few stick shift vehicles there, everyone else had, such a, what do you want to call it? They could only go so slow with their automatic without pressing their brakes. So we were the guys binding everybody up with our crazy low crawl. So it was kind of, counterproductive because we had to continually rev up to match their automatic since they couldn't go any slower.
Well, that was their own fault for running an automatic. Jeez.
Well, right. Yeah, because what do you think? We had what was Vern calling his Jeep, the build for this year?
Oh, the UALRJ?
Yeah, yep. And then Trent had one in that Scout. The guys over at International had one in their Scout.
Stephen Watson had an MV 4500.
Okay.
Off-road design.
I think that's it.
Yeah, you're probably right. There was not a lot of manuals. But now think about it, Chad. And this is back to conversations you and I have had over the years about reliability. And not to make this a manual versus automatic episode, but going back to things you and I have talked about, just so our listeners know, and before, I didn't prime you or anything, how many, manual transmission failures did you see on this trip?
I think the bigger question is what kind of transmission failures did we see? Everybody seemed to have it pretty much dialed in. It was kind of funny because having had no experience off-roading and only started watching the shows last year, for me, watching the early stuff when guys are just beating the crap out of the rigs and having to fix stuff all night and doing this and that, this year, I mean, heck, I think, our Jeep alone went airborne for sure, and nobody really broke anything. So it's kind of impressive how well these things are getting built now. It's almost like they need to have ultimate adventure with rocket launchers.
I support this. I support
this. Even that much more difficult because everybody knew what they were doing. We were the dingleberries out there.
Well, I guess we didn't. You're correct. We didn't have any complete transmission failures, but we did have, with exception of maybe Ian's, that I think he had to flush out and stuff. But we had 4 or 5 automatics that had overheating issues.
If you're familiar with that Ian Johnson show, he doesn't know what he's doing to begin with. He just rubs stuff together and then just puts more weld on top of it.
Oh, my God. Ian's going to love that, man. I love it.
Oh, boy.
So, yeah.
I guess that means we're going to have to try and get him on the show to defend
I tell you what. So, speaking of manuals and stuff, though, I know you intermittently listen to the podcast. You're a real busy guy and this and that, but I don't know if you know. Did you know that we had a gentleman, Jeff Ismail, from IH Parts America on the show?
Yeah, I sure did.
I don't know if you had a chance to listen to that episode or not, but he kind of cat's out of the bag on something that I didn't even know about. Apparently, you're working with him to do some AX15 swaps and some early scouts.
Yeah, we sure are. It's very crazy is the word to use here. Crazy how folks look at each and every one of their builds. But a interesting success we've been having is folks wanting to either upgrade the factory engine or transmission, but not both. They're just upset with one or the other. So depending on which make and model we discuss, there's different aggravations. But with the Scouts and their 4-cylinders, they never had an overdrive. So we can hang a brand new AX15 in there. Jeff's going to work on cross members and adaptation for the transfer case, and we're off to the races. It's an external rear slave cylinder, modern clutch kit, brand new billet flywheel. You don't have to chase the obsolete parts. It's just in a box, shows up to you, and you're heading down the road again.
I love it.
Well, what's funny about that is I remember asking you why you had a slant 4 Scout engine sitting there at your shop when I was down there, and I think you said something along the lines of, "Oh, I'm working on something with Jeff or something," and that was about the end of the conversation. And and I kind of figured because you're pretty open with me. We've been pretty close for years. You've told me a lot of your stuff, but I know that every once in a while you get a little secretive with me, and I respect that because you're in a pretty tight industry, and you know that I'm a media guy, and hopefully I don't let something slip, but I always could. But then Jeff gets on the podcast and he's telling me all about this awesome company, Quick Draw brand, that's building these parts for, and I'm like, oh, that's what he's up to now. So, I hear about it from your guy.
If you think about it, Keith, we weren't, whatever that discussion was about that engine, it's completely out of my mind because if you recall, it was eyeballs bulging out of our head out of stress trying to get that Jeep built the morning we're trying to leave.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Thinking about anything except make this thing go down the road at 60 miles an hour is not in my radar at the moment.
All right. So I got to have you confirm or deny something if my memory is correct on the UA Thrash here. Okay. I have told the story. I've even said it on the podcast. And I've had 3 or 4 people say that there is absolutely no way that this happened. And you tell me if I'm making it up or if, and if I am, that's fine. But I have told several people that if we couldn't fix that Rubicon or that JK that night, that you were like seconds away from buying a brand new Rubicon on your computer there, and we were going to go in UK with a brand new Rubicon.
Yeah, I had pulled it up on the stupid computer already. We were just going to put those wheels on it and assume they were going to drag on the fender.
Told you, John. Told you, Chad was that crazy.
I never doubted it. That's awesome.
And what's ironic about that is there's a brand new Gladiator sitting in the driveway right now for another project, so it would have worked out well either way.
You bought a Gladiator?
Yeah, we bought one of those 21 models with the Eco Diesel, the 3-liter diesel in it with that 8-speed. So kind of got some big things coming in for that trip.
Hey,
now.
up for some visitors next weekend? Kind of come down and get a tour of the shop and see some of the ongoing projects, maybe?
You can. And more than anything, you'll be pushing a broom trying to get the messes cleaned up.
You going to be down in Ohio, John?
I mean, maybe.
Oh, okay. All right.
I didn't have plans before this conversation.
Oh,
but...
okay. I get you.
That thing's pretty cool. It's seeing about 26, 27 miles to the gallon in factory mode. So once we get the Danas and the lift kit and all that, it'll be interesting to see how much it actually drops out.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. And we always love talking about engine and transmission swaps and stuff like that. I mean, can you tell us what you're going to be doing with this Gladiator, or is it kind of a secretive thing you got going on?
This one I can't let out of the bag. It'll be a pretty cool, monumental thing if we can get it to pull off right.
Okay, very cool, very cool. Well, backing it up a little bit, because I know this one is maybe the cat is out of the bag a little bit on it. And ironically, I had just read something, I think that you had posted through Quick Draw brand or maybe one of your sites or whatever. And then the next day later, somebody was asking about engine swap options for their vintage Power Wagon. But I think, and you can tell me a little bit more about it. Are you now offering something for the first generation Power Wagon for engine swaps or something, or you're in the works, or what's going on with that?
Yeah, so we're wrapping up a new bell housing adapter that's going to allow you to keep the 4-speed hanging in the truck and just upgrade the engine. So the guys that just want a diesel swap to cruise the Lowe's or Home Depot, or the rotor's just completely worn out, or they just want to have that cool diesel, but they don't care about highway use, because truly, if you're going to do a Power Wagon build, your steering and your gearing and everything else is still, just too old. So you really got to do a full rebuild or just do this. And I think doing this is what 99% of the guys want to cruise in. So, we get the old straight cut gear noise. We keep all the mounts and stuff in the Power Wagon. We get a new engine platform.
Very cool. Now, is that just the 2.8, or are you doing it for various other engines?
At the moment, the focus is the Cummins R28 and then that Duramax 2.8, both being the turbo diesel.
So you've actually made progress on using the 2.8 as a swap engine, the Duramax 2.8.
We have made minimal progress. The adapter is done, flat done, sitting here on the desk, ready to start advertising. Still negotiating with the GM side of it to get the crate engines, and then truly trying to find a builder who can find the time quicker than us to put it in and say, heck yeah, this is awesome, or what were you thinking?
Hey, though, I mean, that's great, though. That engine's been out for, 8-10 years now? It's not a new engine.
Yeah, they brought it out in 14 or 15, so it's relatively new, but we took that. We had a Chevy van with that Duramax 2.8 in it, and we took it out to SEMA in 18.
That's correct.
And we had the van loaded down with engines, and then the U-Haul trailer loaded down with engines, and it was one of the, I guess I'd say it's a 5x12, the dual axle enclosed trailer, and we were doing 80 down the highway, keeping up with traffic, still seeing 23 miles to the gallon. It was a very, very impressive engine.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I've seen great numbers back on him. That's pretty cool. If he can start cracking because they weren't a rare engine by any means. They did build them in numbers, and within the next couple of years, you're going to start seeing them in the wrecking yards. And so I think if Chad's going to start building this stuff for the 2.8 Duramax now, that might be the hot ticket swap.
Maybe I should rethink my
build. It's going to be pretty interesting. And what we're fully focusing on is trying to make it emission compliant. That's the only hang up at all with that Cummins R28 is we can't get past the 1999 model year vehicle. That's the part that just kills numerous cool builds. You can't legally put it in a JK. You can't put it in a new Toyota. There's just all these dang hoops you just can't even find a way to jump through. So it's unfortunate because that little Cummins is awesome, but to get around that, we just have to go to a newer engine platform. So we're working with SEMA right now to get the carb and the EOs and things like that figured out. Just really full forcing on it to make that a viable solution for the emissions side of the equation.
Just bring it to Michigan. We don't have emissions testing.
Well, federally, there's still laws. It's like, but yeah, there's like 38 states that still do annual inspections or something. But for Chad to offer that, though, that's pretty freaking cool. So, Back to UA, man. Your Jeep that you got back from UA with, have you taken her out at all? Taken the kids around the yard or anything with it?
Oh, yeah, we've been bumming around in it. It's developed some type of electric loss on it, so if you leave it hooked up overnight, it drains the battery out. So we must have done something to that. Still haven't fixed the rear axle we bent. The, just simple things that just haven't gotten back to it. It's just been sitting there, just bombing around the mud.
Yeah, that I tell you what, though, man. I mean, what an awesome trip. It was a trip of a lifetime for me. I think going through that tunnel underground, the old train tunnel, that
video looked awesome, dude.
That was a highlight of the trip as well. And when Chad broke that axle or bent that axle, that was. I'm hoping that at one time, because I do have the contact information for him. We've stayed in touch a little bit. Austin, the camera guy. He narrowly missed Chad's jump there. Did I tell you about Chad's jump?
Yeah.
Oh, where I just said goose it and he hit the damn thing and he did about a 4 foot off the ground. And I don't think I've ever seen a JK so high in the air in my life. So you definitely, Chad, you definitely earned your stripes on this trip as an off-roader. Just diving right into it. I got to give you props there, man. You that first day, probably the first half of the day, you were kind of driving gingerly, and after that, you were just balls to the wall with everything, and you just had a go for broke attitude with that thing, and I was just really impressed with your driving skill, the Jeep's capability. It was so. Are you indeed doing the UA next year? Have you started building anything for it, or are you getting some plans going, or do you know what's going on or anything?
100%. Yeah, we're definitely full force on the design side of it now. We've got a 57 flat fender power wagon that's a knockoff swivel frame. So the cab and the bed move independent from each other when you're going over the rough terrain. So rather than jacking that bad boy up in the air, the whole thing just walks like a caterpillar. So we're gonna repower that with a Cummins R28, hang a Tremec in it, and just beat the snot out of it.
I love everything you just said. That is awesome. Cool.
Yeah, that's going to be a really, really cool rig.
Yeah.
Have you seen this month's four-wheeler? You got you and myself's ugly mugs in there?
I have seen some snippets of it, but you're right. There's some ugly mugs.
Yeah, that's of course, I look like I'm about 4 feet tall, which I am. So in that picture, but
I'm gonna have to flip through that when we get back up.
Yeah, no.
Rub your bald head and make a wish.
Yeah.
It's not that bald anymore. He's been letting all the hair grow out. It's weird, dude. It's like he's got carpet on his face. It's I haven't seen that in a long time. It's just weird.
So let me ask you this, Chad. Your build, your JKU that you did, without, of course, plugging your own product, which of course that's probably your own favorite, your trans swap that you do with your Silver Sport transmission, which I know you got your Tremec from Silver Sport transmissions and they hooked you all up, and that's an awesome swap, and you do the adapter bell housing to the stock 3.8 engine or 3.6 engine. Besides your product that was in that Jeep, which we already talked about, worked phenomenally well. I had my doubts about going from a 6-speed to a 5-speed. All those doubts are erased now. That was the perfect combination. What was your favorite other modification that you did to that? Because I know you did a lot of little modifications, a lot of bolt-on stuff. What did you like the most about your JKU that you took on UA?
Well, I will make one more shameless plug before I answer that. The transmissions can be had directly from quickdrawbrand.com, so we can hook you up with that. But I can tell you without a doubt, the best modification over our transmission stuff was putting that metal cloak, all steel belly pan kit on that thing. That was the lifesaver, because there was no concern about how hard you hit anything. You just knew that crap was going to take it. And I don't recall the gauge of that, but I think it's 1/4 or 3/8 of thickness of steel on that. And there are some significant dents, bends, holes, whatever you want to call it, into that, and we just kept rocking. So without that, you'd be dead in the water on the first day. I think that was just a superb product.
I got to agree with you, and I figured you were going to go there because I remember specifically the last day of UA when we were at McKinney Trail in South Dakota there, and some of that insane rock crawling we did, and watching.
That was crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy, but and where Jeff rolled and Ian rolled, and you were hitting some of those rock ledges to the point where you were just skidding right up them or right down them on that metal cloak, and like you said, you might have gotten some dents or some scrapes in it, but there was things that just the angles you were at. I can't imagine doing those without some sort of major drive shaft or transfer case damage. And as you know, like that ledge that Ian rolled on, I think ate 3 or 4 drive shafts. I think Trent ate a drive shaft on that, and Ryan ate a drive shaft on that. There was several people that ate a drive shaft on that, and those were all people that didn't have skid plates underneath the full belly of the vehicle. And actually, I think you did bypass that one simply because we were getting way late in the day. But even other obstacles, would have easily taken out things like that. That metal cloak really did do its job, didn't it, buddy?
It sure did, and I can't leave out Skyjacker. I can't leave out Warren. They sent us a really, really slick set of wheels that everybody seemed to like. It's just when you think about what you were doing all week, and the whole plan of attack was destroy this Jeep, and you couldn't do it because Metal Cloak was preventing you. That sticks out in my mind. Obviously without the suspension lift, you just would have been dead on the first obstacle, and if the wheels weren't set right, your beads are going to pop off. So all those things were critical. But man, I tell you what, those guys have it dialed in. And I assume aluminum must work for folks. There was a lot of argument about steel over aluminum, but I'm sold on the steel. It's the way to go.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll tell you right now, Chad. Years ago when I was on that dive team that you know about, we had an ex-military vehicle that had all aluminum skid plates, and the vehicle had actually, they went and did a boat launch off of a rocky beach up here, and it had aluminum skid plates underneath it, and they hit a couple of boulders on a rocky beach, and it ended up pushing the aluminum up so high that it crushed the transpan and filter all the way up into the transmission. And that aluminum was far thicker than the steel that was on your metal cloak setup. So no, the steel is far superior in my opinion. After seeing that,
and you can trail fix that.
yeah, you can smash the steel back with a sledgehammer pretty easily if you need to. Speaking of your Skyjacker suspension there, and I remember telling Lonnie that from Lonnie McCurry from Skyjacker, who came on UA as well with his awesome Hot Wheels Bronco. One of the things that I went into UA this year. I don't want to use the word biased, but I guess that's kind of it. Skyjacker, when I was a young man in the 90s, was kind of the lift kit that you put on the truck that maybe rode really stiff and you went out to the mud bog with it, but you didn't really do hardcore off-roading with it. And they were kind of just the company that like jacked up a truck. Man, what a difference in keeping up with the industry they have. I guess I really never paid attention to what they're doing, but the flex, we never even disconnected your sway bars all week, did we? I don't think we ever did that. Chad?
No, if you remember, we didn't do that because we had never tested the flex before we left, so the fear was if we disconnect that, it might just all fall apart.
Oh, there's that.
Nice.
But I tell you what, man, the flex that you had and how smooth that rode. I mean, there was times we were riding washboard roads at 40, 50 miles an hour, and that thing just, if we would have been riding in a leaf sprung vehicle or even a stock JK, I think you and I would have gone home with vertebrae popping out of the back of our throat. That Skyjacker suspension was really tuned in for that vehicle. I was really impressed with that.
That's kind of my point about the whole thing. I think the industry's caught so far up that it's no longer the ultimate adventure without some kind of tank traps, or you got to, drive through a minefield or something to start breaking things, because everything is just so well built now. Even
the tires, what were we running Toyos on that? Is that, or what were we running on that thing?
No, those are Falcons.
The Falcons.
Yeah, and they just, I think we did lose some chunks out of it just from the absurdity that we were doing, but they just chisel Pete. The whole thing was just, I don't want to incriminate myself or belittle it by saying it was easy, but it was something that with the right equipment, unless you're just a lunatic, you don't have to die on it. You can just get through it and have a good time.
Well, I think part of it was many Ultimate Adventures in the past, they hit a lot of mud. We didn't hit barely any mud on this trip. And the small, we had a lot of rock crawling and trail riding, and the Falcons, like you said, they just grabbed. They were like almost stickies, even though not being stickies. And on top of that, I think that the smallest tires on the trip were 36s or 37s. So, we were from there all the way up to 42s, and people were running very aggressive. Most of the people were running the Falcons, which was a sponsor. But there was a couple other brands as well there. And, yeah, like Chad said, I
think the guys from Onyx Off-Road had some 35s.
Yeah, I think they were the smallest.
They were in front of us on that last day, and they were being a little more passive on some of the events because they just didn't have the clearance. But they still got through a lot of it. I mean, like I'm saying, it's just when you watch the videos of past years till now, and you're right, we didn't have really any mud. But some of that rock stuff, when you look at it prior to climbing it, you just think there is no flipping way we're going to get up this, and there's sure as heck no way we're going down without getting on our roof. And it did it. The equipment was awesome.
Well, John, I'll tell you, Chad took to this thing like a duck to water. I've never seen. I've been involved, as you know now, in the off-road world for every bit of 25 years, and I have never seen someone who so easily took to that style of off-road driving. He just, Chad, I don't know where you got it from, man, but you looked like what's that?
I can tell you exactly where I got it from. You had 7 days to have fun, then you got to get back to work.
Well, but I mean, even just the skill. I mean, there's a certain skill level with how to, and I know some of it goes with spotting and whatnot, but a certain skill level about picking the right line and when to engage four-wheel drive, when to engage a front locker, when to engage a rear locker. You picked up so quickly on all of that, and you just... You within a couple of days there, you look like you've been doing this for 20 years.
It was a heck of a lot of fun. But, if you think about it, like even the obstacle you mentioned where Trent had the drive shaft separate, we didn't even go up that thing because it was pretty clear that was out of our wheelhouse of ability. And that obstacle we did do on the last one was definitely a grind and winch job because there was just no way to cleverly get up that mound of rocks. So there's 100% of skill that is zero possessed on this end, but it was definitely make 7 days into 7 days of fun.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I can't thank you enough, man, for taking me along. It was such a blast. We had such a good time. I know that you and I, we laughed through a lot of it. Of course, we get on each other's nerves a few times, and this and that as two people in a vehicle for a week will. But I mean, for the most part, if you
would have showered, it wouldn't have been so bad.
Well, there's that. Put some right gunner into the left arm, It was, the trip was everything and more that I think the biggest thing for me, buddy, was, going on it. I was not sure up till the moment we started the trip how much actual off-roading it was going to be and how much quote unquote TV it was going to be like where they, I was wondering if it was going to be like, okay, maybe a little bit of off-roading and then trying to stage a bunch of stuff and them trying to make a lot of drama. And as you know, there was none of that. It was literally the cameramen were running around trying to take photos and pictures of our shenanigans as we were doing this trip. And there was no fake stuff whatsoever. And I won at least this UA. I mean, maybe previous ones, I highly doubt it, but I can 100% tell our listeners and everyone else that UA is 100% real. Everything you see on the video, everything you see in the pictures, that is real. That's what we did. There was no drama. There was no staging of stuff. There was no, okay, pull your tire up under this rock so we can take a picture, and then you didn't really do the obstacle. It was nothing like that, so...
it'll be interesting to see what the video depicts on that, because if you remember, and I'm sure you do, just trying to get a really cool picture of where we were, like coming down that mountain face, where the guys that, who was it? Was it the folks from Dana, where they were coming up as we were coming down, so they had to do a 8-point turn to head the other direction where there wasn't 8 points worth of space to do it.
Oh, I kind of remember that.
We're trying to take those pictures, and we can't even get the depiction of the incline we're sitting at. That's what's going to be neat about seeing it on TV is, does it depict what we were actually doing? Because my gosh, some of that stuff just didn't seem possible.
The TV, unfortunately, the TV camera pictures, it never gives you the elevation. Like, you never fully get the full idea of how much of a drop off. I know, like, I'm looking back through my pictures, and I remember, like, the day we went up to that old gold processing smashing mill. If you remember, Chad, there was times where you're looking down, and if you rolled off the side of that trail, your vehicle was going to roll for 400 or 500 feet before it stopped. And,
sure.
The pictures don't show that. You just look at it, it looks like you're on the side of a hill. It's like, no,
right.
That's not the case. That's,
Jeez.
if you went over the side of that thing, you weren't stopping.
Yeah.
There was no stopping that vehicle. So, that was super cool. But, Chad, we've talked a lot about UA and all that. I guess maybe switching gears here for a minute. We haven't talked about your product. I know you've come on the podcast. Maybe this is your third or fourth time, and we really always appreciate you having you on. Do you got any like new crazy products our listeners need to know about? Like anything you're doing right now that we haven't heard about yet?
So I know that most of the folks have known that but Cummins had back ordered the engines. We had such a successful year selling those boogers that that along with COVID, things kind of came to a grinding halt back in August. But we're back up and running. They're taking pre-orders right now. So come January, the motors are back on the ground and scooting. So we're doing just a massive dash right now to get all these products that we've either been sidelining, just haven't had time to list. And then on top of that, we've got a couple of really cool full installs that you can just buy in a box, bolt it in on your end. With the thought on our end being nothing more than we don't want to cut or weld to the frame. Where anywhere possible if we don't have to. Now, some things I'm going to interpret are just going to become that way when we get to the builds. But, currently we've got an FJ40 here. We're doing a 2.8 swap. And the absolute crazy part is we're running an Allison 1000 bolted up to the factory transfer case. So if you can imagine how short 90 inches is for a wheelbase and cramming a 1-ton heavy-duty Allison 6-speed in there, I've got a brand new product line about to release to make the Allison fit in damn near any wheelbase vehicle, unless you're looking at a sidekick, something that's just absurd.
Where did you get an adapter to go from an Allison 1000 to an FJ40 Toyota Land Cruiser transfer case?
Literally pulled it out of thin air.
You made one?
Oh yeah. It's going to release mid-December.
I was like, because I'm heavy in the Land Cruiser world, and I've never seen an Allison to Land Cruiser transfer case adapter.
It's going to be, for the extreme niche market that we're trying to fill, a monumental success, because the way it's designed, I can bolt it up to any different transfer case. The competitors that have had solutions that at least work for the longer wheelbase vehicles, what they do is they put an additional spacer plate between the tail housing and the transfer case. I've made a whole new tail housing that's modular, so you can go from split case to 205 to 230. It interchanges with all of them, with a different spud shaft. And the really cool thing that makes this all work is the spud shaft on the 1000s comes out by turning the Allison on its nose and pulling the housing off the back. So you don't have to do a whole transmission teardown to take the shaft out of the back. So, on top of the fact that you can brag, I've got an Allison 1000. It's easy to install. Think about the absurdity of this. It's a 18,000 GVW transmission in a 3,500 pound vehicle. You're never going to destroy the thing.
I'm not much of an automatic guy, but I tell you what, if I was going to do an automatic swap, that would be the way I would go.
That's impressive.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see this. I'm just still trying to envision how he's shoehorning a 1000 and an FJ40. That's like a CJ5 wheelbase there, man. That's not much of a wheel.
Weren't we just talking about longer drivetrains in one of our other episodes?
Yeah.
So we've got some pictures out on the old social media, but the way that we win on this is, even though the Allison's a heavier duty deal with a bigger oil pan, the length is shorter, the way we can do the adapter on it. If that spud shaft didn't come out of the back, we'd just be dead in the water. You'd have to do it like every other damn tranny adapter, where you're adding pieces to the back and hoping your drive shaft isn't too crazy. And with this one mocked up in the Toyota as we speak, the rear drive shaft is longer than a 89 YJ. So, if you can make it work on that, it's surely going to work on this.
So are you saying that you've actually figured out a way to essentially shorten the stock application of the Allison 1000?
Correct. Yep. It's hanging
Holy
in
crap.
the truck as we speak on the lift. We're waiting on a few parts that, like rubber parts that we can't make for intake, but I'm hoping to have this thing off that lift in 2 weeks.
Well, dude, an Allison 1000 is not that much longer than like an old TH400 though, is it?
It's not. But, like with TH400, you can't swap the back housing off unless you do a full, if you want to swap out the shaft, unless you tear the whole thing down. That shaft comes out the front, not the back. So that's how we can win on this, is it's an easy swap. You can just make that piece of the puzzle.
That's what I'm getting at. You just made an Allison 1000 shorter than a TH400?
It's pretty cool. It's
No, that's beyond cool. You went from a 3-speed non-over. So the only heavy-duty GM transmission prior to this was, or automatic transmission, was the TH400 3-speed non-overdrive. Once you went to the 4L80E, you had this long housing on the back of it and all of that, and it made the trans real long. You're telling me you took an Allison 6-speed, which is an overdrive 6-speed transmission, and made it shorter than a TH400, and it's also like
overdrive.
And it's like double overdrive, and it's like 3 times stronger than a TH400, and you've made a shorter application for the off-road guys.
Yeah, and the cool thing is it seems like all these vehicles land around 90-inch wheelbase, so it'll work for all of them. A Bronco, a Scout, FJ40, a CJ7. I think the CJ5s are even shorter, so that might be the part where you just can't win. But all the other cool trucks, I mean, they're just right there at 90, 88 to 90 inches. So it's just it's going to be pretty cool,
I think John right now can see the visual confusion on my face. Like, I cannot figure out. I'm in my mind. My mechanical mind right now, Chad, is trying to figure out how the hell you shortened an Allison 1000 that much.
There's steam coming out of his ears.
I'm like, this is going to be mind blowing.
Well,
And not say if. I know you will succeed at this. This is going to be a complete game changer.
Well, and so the real cool factor is, prior to this, the reason, for example, Advanced Adapters or whoever was making that piece to go between there was not only to put a transfer case on it, but it was to make the computer work, because you had to add a speed sensor prior to the transfer case. Otherwise, you were stuck with the GM transfer case, and things went cattywampus with the aftermarket tuning. So with this setup, I've got the speed sensor built into it as well, so it kills all the problems with one stone. You're just throwing a big rock in the air and hitting crows on the ground.
Man, Chad,
even I can respect this build.
this is beyond a game changer, and I don't know where you got the inspiration for this thing, but this is super cool. Man, I think we're gonna have to bring you on again. Obviously, you've been on several times. We're kind of getting to our time limit right now, but we're definitely going to continue to plug your Allison stuff and what you're doing with Quick Draw. We really appreciate that. Once again, we appreciate you taking me to I appreciate you taking me on UA and all that. But you still, seriously, you got my mind blown on this Allison thing, and now I'm sitting here thinking, like, what can I build with an Allison 1000 now that I can fit one in one of my short wheelbase 4x4s and
anything?
Dude, listeners, Mr. Chad here is the guy you need to talk to. Chad, what is the phone number to reach you at? What's the website? You let us know all your details.
Yeah, the phone number, it's just the same old number, 513-446-9654. We're working on a solution to get the phone answered faster. Right now, the best course of action is drop an email, and I'll just try to get back to you, usually after 5 or 6. But the email address, chad@quickdrawbrand.com.
Perfect. And then quickdrawbrand.com is the website as well. And then you can also find Quick Draw Brand on the social medias. You're on Facebook and Instagram. Are you on Twitter as well, or no?
I think that's about as much as I can keep up with.
Okay, so you're on Facebook and Instagram. He's got a lot of cool pictures on Instagram. He seems to put a lot of stuff up there as he builds it. Listeners, Quick Draw Brand, we've told you before, is a top-notch company, and the stuff that they're coming up with is always a game changer for the 4x4 and hot rod industry. And and Chad here is, and we got him on the phone, and he's probably going to blush when I say this, but he is a mad scientist when it comes to some of these motor trans or transfer case combination swaps. He's finally, the first time in 20 years, he's the first adapter company that's willing to think outside of the box and willing to build adapters for more than just a damn small block Chevy and, whatever Toyota transmission or whatever. He's building like all the oddball stuff along with the common stuff, and he's taking the common stuff and making it stronger. He torture tests it on UA, and super cool stuff here, man. If you're looking to adapt anything to anything before you call anybody else, you need to get hold of Chad first. Is that fair enough, Chad?
Well, I will tell you this, for your bad mouthing of the small block, we're bringing out a bell housing to both the small block and BOP up to an AX-15 as well.
Ooh. Oh,
John's eyes just got big over here.
This makes me very, very happy.
John wants to put a AX-15 behind
going to.
Wants to put an AX-15 behind a Buick V6. So I think your guys are going to be talking very soon.
Indeed.
So, Chad, as always, it's a pleasure. I know you're a busy man. We need to let you get back to work, but thank you so much for coming on, and we always appreciate you supporting Wheeling, and we appreciate you coming on, just taking your time to talk to us as well, too,
thank
sir.
you.
Yeah, man.
All right, talk to you soon, buddy. We'll talk to you later.
Have a good one, Chad.
Bye.
All right,
I like where this went.
Well, geez, man. But I seriously, I'm sitting here and I'm going, the Allison 1000 is a pretty long transmission.
I know nothing about it.
So, listeners can't see my hands. TH400 is the most stout GM trans ever. It's about yay long, probably. Someone's going to call me out on this. I think they're about 28 inches, 29 inches. Okay. Allison 1000, you're up in that 32, maybe 34 inch range.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He's saying whatever he's done, and I cannot picture how he's done this. He's made it shorter than a TH400, yet you still have a 6-speed double overdrive automatic that's basically school bus strength.
Holy crap.
Because Allison's come in school buses and stuff.
Yeah, I knew they were like heavy-duty transmissions.
I don't know what he did. I need to see this in person because I'm going, I don't really believe it.
So what are you doing next weekend? I'm seriously thinking we take a road trip down there for the day or something.
One of these, we're going to have to do some video stuff down there sometime, man. But
I support this. What are you doing next weekend, Andrew?
Yeah. Pretty crazy stuff, man. Pretty crazy stuff. But, John, I think that's probably enough. We need to let our listeners have a little break from us for a week here. But where can they hear more from us? Or
check us out on Facebook and our group 4x4 Talk. Wow, why can't I talk right now? 4x4 Talk on Facebook. Just search that or type it into the search bar there. 4x4 Talk. Couple quick questions get you on the page. You can interact with either of us or any of the other listeners who follow the show. You can also check us out, patreon.com/WheelinRadio. Accesses those $2 a month. Get you some bonus content, a lot of stuff we don't necessarily get to on the show. All kinds of other cool stuff you can get to. I think that's all I got.
Museum of Off-Road Adventure on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. You can also find us on the Facebook group 4x4 Museum.
That works, and I think that's all we got for you folks this week. So with that, thanks for listening. Oh, I'm sorry, I almost forgot. Huge thanks to Mr. Andrew, our producer. Without him, none of this would be possible. I may have forgot to thank him last show.
Which...
I'm so sorry. I forgot, I'm so sorry. I feel so bad now.
Maybe, I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Maybe, but
Andrew, I'm sorry. Please accept my heartfelt
Should
apologies.
we say anything about what's going to happen by the next time we record? Maybe.
I don't know on that one. That's up to you guys.
All right. Mr. Andrew, the producer, might be Andrew the daddy by then. So,
Oh, we're going to have to come up with a new name for him.
So it depends. We'll see. We'll see. Any day now. Any day now. We're waiting for the for her to go. Pook, you know? So
I just imagine a turkey timer going. Bing.
I'm done. Right. So
Well, with all that being said, thanks for listening and have a good one, everybody.